My name's Carolyn. And so the college and career readiness coach position is really new at the Excel Center. So it's been really fun to be in this role. And, you know, I'm here again, you guys, for a lot of that individual support. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me to kind of discuss some of this stuff a little bit more if you'd like. And yeah, so what I did back in February is I did a presentation all about certification programs. And so that was a really great presentation. It talked a lot about like common fields that you can get certifications in and kind of how like short-term training can help you lead into a job, right? And the whole idea here is kind of thinking through like, okay, you know, I'm here in high school, I'm working towards my diploma with the end goal many times being getting a better job, right? Or entering into a different field, right? And starting a career. Many students at the Excel Center really want a career, right? Rather than just a job. So as we're kind of talking through these things, that's kind of what we're focusing on, right? And so when I talk about college or certifications, right, you want to be thinking, right, what are my goals after high school and what kind of training or education do I need, right? And so as we've seen, not all positions are created equal, right? Meaning not everything requires college, but some things do. Some things require a certification, some don't, right? But that's kind of like the focus we're going to take as we do this workshop. What's really cool about advisory is that all of you guys are kind of in the same boat in terms of credits, right? So we're kind of in that sweet spot where if we have the right amount of planning now, it's really possible to kind of make your goals a reality. Because a lot of times we have to do things ahead of time. And one of those things is financial aid. So after I do this presentation on the college process, I really, really encourage everyone to attend the financial aid session because that's how we're going to really bring all these pieces together. So we'll go ahead and get started today. Okay, so this is a hard presentation, I'll be honest, for everyone on this call because college is like a huge subject. There's a lot that goes into this. And so please know that I am merely introducing it to you guys and the kind of nuts and bolts and details we will go over as we go further along in advisory. So when we get further into like term 5 in May, I'm going to talk a lot about like how do you actually apply? How does this actually work? So I'll go ahead and keep going. Okay, I think my first slide is a question for people. And if you feel comfortable sharing, please do. Or if you'd rather type it in the chat, that's cool. So I just kind of want to know one of two things, like what comes to mind when you think about college, right? And is anyone here interested in college? Is this something that you know you've been interested in, or if that's a goal of yours?
Well, me, not necessarily college. I'm leaning more towards the certification classes.
Okay, okay, for sure. And then for anyone here, like when you think about college, like what comes up? Is it something that's positive maybe, or is it kind of negative? Like, oh, I don't know. Seems like a lot of work.
For me, I think it's not bad or good. I just think it'll be like a lot of money,
Money.
and a lot of homework. I could barely get through normal school. Imagine college. It'd just
Mm-hmm.
be worse. Well, from my opinion.
Yeah, Manuel, I'm so glad you brought that up. That's what a lot of people think about, right? When they think about college, immediately we're thinking about the cost, right? And a lot of times the cost seems really unattainable, right? So I think a big part of why I'm here today is also to kind of talk to you guys about how college can be possible and how to really make the right decision for you. Because for many of us, college isn't the way that we're going to reach our goals. It may be, it may not be, right? Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, for me, I think it's for my age, probably no I don't know if it's too late to go to college, but probably some another courses. But I have the experiences including my kids going to college.
Mm-hmm.
All of them get scholarships
Mm-hmm.
and financial aid. The schools help, the teachers help them. So I have the experience about, I know about it, but I don't know if it's for me now. I don't know, but I'm very happy to you are here and explain us to probably a lot of people doesn't know about the things, so they think it's impossible, but you can do it if you want to go to college.
Yeah, Rosa, that's such a good point. And I think like for you, you've seen your kids go through it, right? And you've seen that there has been a lot of support, you know, whether that's financial support or social support, right, from their professors. So by seeing that, it's kind of like, oh, that's kind of possible. At the same time, like, is that good for me, right? And that's a really good question. And I think like as adults, right, we need to think about this really critically, right, to make sure that we're making the right decision. And I think to be able to make the right decision is to know a little bit more about it, because a lot of us have heard lots of things, right, but we really don't actually know what the experience will be like, right? So I'm really glad you shared that. And I'm hoping that this presentation, along with the financial aid presentation, will kind of help us feel a little bit more clear about, you know, what kind of options are available to you.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, great. Yeah, and we're going to record this meeting, most definitely. Well, guys, thanks for sharing that. And I think like I want to kind of normalize the fact that college can bring up a lot of anxiety, just the thought of it, because we know like, oh my gosh, you know, a lot of people are in debt because of college, right? Or college is a lot of work. Like, can I even do that? So I really just want y'all to put all that behind you and just kind of come at this with a fresh mindset, because a lot of times those past experiences of other people or other people's opinions can kind of cloud our own. So anyway, we'll talk about it. And plus, I'm super transparent about college, and there's going to be some pros and cons. We will see. But we will keep going. So I'm going to start out by just talking about, you know, some things about why college is important based off of where we live, right? So I talked about this a lot when we did our certification presentation. And I think this is just really saying like, hey, like the more education you have, right, the more you invest in your education, the more money you're likely to make. And that's really just what we see with data all across the nation, right? So if we look at the Bureau of Labor Market Trends, right, we see like with every level of education that people earn, their income ends up increasing, right? So in Austin, about 27.8, so almost 28%, which I look at it like almost like a third of jobs are going to be requiring a bachelor's degree, right? And this is just in the Austin local area. And like that doesn't seem like that much, but in terms of numbers, it really is, because nationally we see that about 22% of jobs are going to require a bachelor's degree. So the difference between 22% and 27.8 is really big in terms of like statistics. I'm not a big numbers person, but that does mean something. And so, you know, in Austin, we just have a really competitive environment, right? Meaning that a lot of people are competing for the same job. So by having a little bit more of a credential, right, having a degree can help you land the job you want, right? The other thing is that education kind of protects you in some ways from becoming unemployed. And that really just depends on the field that you're in, right? So during the pandemic, we saw all kinds of job loss amongst all different sectors, right? But the ones that we saw the most loss in tended to be like in the service industry, right? Like anything that required a service, right? So those jobs that are tend to be a little bit more service oriented come with high turnover, right? It's likely that you might work in multiple restaurants throughout your career, right? In that way, you're a little bit less replaceable by having that kind of education level, right? Because you have a very specific skill set to bring to a job. This doesn't necessarily mean it has to be college, right? But I really think investing into your future by furthering your education or training can go a long way when it comes to employment. And that's just what we see with college. And so I'll show you guys a couple charts. So we'll just see this, like anytime you look up any information about like college and financial earnings, we're gonna see this same kind of trajectory going up. And so what we see here is like people with a high school diploma, they have no college, they're making just under $750 per week. Whereas people with a bachelor's degree are right around $1,100. It's quite a jump, right? We're seeing that people with a college degree earn twice as much as those with a high school diploma per week, right? So, I mean, that's just kind of like one of the big reasons why a lot of people do go to college, because we know that it can help you earn more money over time. And like I said, with the unemployment, I think it just helps you find stable employment, right? So those two things are two really, really big benefits of it. And we'll go to the next slide. I have another one, but this is for annual earnings. So this is about how much you would earn in an entire year. And so if we look at a high school diploma, right, they on average, again, this is an average or median salary, sorry, median annual salary. So like the very middle, people with a high school diploma make around $38,000 per year in the very median, right? But that jumps really high if we just go to an associate's degree. We look over here in the one that's in red, that's at $54,000 per year, right? So we see this, we just see this trend over and over and over again, right? That education does over time help you make more money, right? So that's a big benefit of college. It's a big reason why a lot of certain employers are going to require that degree, right? But a college degree doesn't necessarily ensure that you're going to have a high salary. Like, we can look at all these charts over and over again, and we can see, yes, people with degrees make more money, but we also see plenty of people with college degrees that aren't making good money, right? So, you know, how do we come to terms with that, right? Like, so college helps you make more money, but at the same time, just because I go to college, that doesn't mean like my life's going to be set, right? So you want to go into college remembering that it's a long-term investment, right? And so you are in college for a long period of time, meaning that what you study, you want to make sure that you're able to get a job after that, right? So your success is really going to depend on what you do with that degree, not so much just that you got it. And so a lot of times it's all about the kinds of fields that you choose to go into. And I also want to talk to you guys a little bit about experience. So employers, they want you to have an education, but then they also want you to have experience. This can be a really tough thing, right? Because, you know, you spend a lot of time in school learning, and then when you get out of school, a lot of times the employer wants you to have multiple years of experience. But yet you've been learning for the past, 4 years that you're in school. And so you're kind of like in this situation where you have the education, but you may not have the experience yet, right? And so a way to kind of get through this and a way to kind of make sure that you're going to get a return on your investment, right? Like, if you're investing your time in college, you want to make sure that you're going to be able to use that degree to go get a job, right? And so one of the things I like to kind of give as an option is, you know, try to gain experience in the field, either while you're going to school or prior to going to college. That can be a really great way to kind of get that, you know, hey, do I like this? Number one, is this something I enjoy doing, right? And now I can say to employers, I can start building a resume. So that way when I graduate, not only do I have my diploma, right, but I have that experience. And so we're going to see different ways that you can do that. And a lot of those ways are with using both certifications and college together. So we can see how those two things combined can really kind of help an upward trajectory, meaning that you're going to be able to get promoted and be able to make more money in the field that you want to enter. So anyway, you know, college is a really, really good thing. And like, honestly, guys, it completely changed my life. I don't regret going to college at all, but now that I'm older, I can recognize that I could have done more work on the back end of realizing like what kinds of degrees were going to be best for me. And so having that thought ahead of time is really key. And so when you're in college, so I'm talking a lot about like the field that you enter, and I keep saying stuff like that because when you're in college, you choose something called a major, right? A major is another word for like an area of study. So I could major in art. I could major in social work, just what I did. I could major in natural sciences. So when you're in college, you got to pick a major. It can really actually be kind of stressful, right? It's like, what do I pick? You know, it's a tough thing. A lot of people pick majors on what they want to do. What do they love doing, right? Like, you know, I love doing these certain things. I'm going to major in that. Some people will choose majors based on how much money they're going to make, right? Like, I want to be a business major. I want to make that money. I know I can make money with this degree, right? So I see a lot of this, like picking it based on salary or just like what I love to do, right? The myth here is that you have to choose one way. And I really think like the truth to this, and I think how we can find success is really bringing those two together. You definitely want to do something that you enjoy doing, right? Picking jobs only based on salary doesn't necessarily lead to success, right? Because we are the ones that have to get up every day to do that job. And if we hate it every day, like life is not so fun. A lot of you guys have had good jobs, you know, and didn't like them or wanted to do something more interesting, right? And so just keep that in mind, like, you know, the money part is a big part of it, right? But you still have to like it. Still got to have that kind of drive with it, right? But the truth is that it should always really be both. It really should. So this is just something I really like to tell students, especially when we talk about college. And I really think this also is the same mindset I want you guys to all go into with certifications as well. Because yes, some certifications are going to lead to high salaries. You still really want to make sure that you're doing this because you really want to do it. Because again, that motivation's got to be there. It's hard work, right? Going to school is hard work. So we're just going to kind of think about the process, right? So I remember when I was a life coach, before I did this college stuff, I would have students tell me, I'd be like, well, so what do you want to do when you leave the Excel Center? And they would be like, well, I want to go to ACC. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, that's so great. Well, like, what do you want to study? And they'd be like, well, I want to be a lawyer. And I would say, oh my gosh, that's awesome. But you cannot be a lawyer by just going to ACC, right? I would have to explain to them, well, you have to go to law school, you know, all this. Some of you guys might know that, but some of us may not understand, like, okay, what's the difference between a bachelor's degree and a master's degree? Or what's the difference between like an associate's degree and a bachelor's degree? I mean, these are all like really big words, and I don't know, it's a lot. So we're just going to go through it one by one. Some of you guys might know this already. So if I'm boring you, I apologize, but we're just going to go through it to make sure we're all on the same page. Okay, so we're going to start out with the smallest, the shortest amount of time that you can get a degree is an associate's degree, and that is a 2-year degree that you can earn. Associate's degrees are offered at community colleges, or sometimes they're called junior colleges. An example of one would be like ACC, Austin Community College. That's where a lot of us are going to earn that associate's degree. I earned an associate's degree in Chicago actually before I came here. It was really, really important for me. It's a smaller environment many times than a university, and you get a little bit more one-on-one help, and it's much less expensive than a full-on university. So associate's degrees are really awesome. The next one up is going to be a bachelor's degree. Bachelor's degrees take 4 years to complete. And those are completed at a university or a college. But typically, like if it says community college or junior college, you won't be able to get a full-on bachelor's degree from there. I do want to make an exception that ACC offers bachelor's degrees in some healthcare fields. So for example, you could become a registered nurse just by attending ACC. Again, ACC is just awesome. Y'all should know it's like one of the best community colleges in the nation. It's really, really good college. Okay, the next one is going to be a master's degree. A lot of times you'll hear people say grad school. I'm in grad school, graduate school. That's what they're saying. I'm getting my master's degree. So a master's degree can take anywhere from like 1 to 2 years after you get a bachelor's. So no one who has a master's degree doesn't already have a bachelor's. The next one we're going to talk about is a doctorate degree. I should put also /law because law school works a lot like doctoral degrees do. And so that takes 4 to 8 years after earning a bachelor's or a master's degree. It just depends on the field you want to go into. So we can see that like doctors, man, like they're in school for a long time. I mean, 4 years to be a bachelor's and then the doctorate, another 4 to 8 years. So we're looking at like, wow, like 8 to 12 years of school. It's a long time. But we can see other ones don't take that long, right? And then I think I have my next slide that talks about transferring. Hold on, let me see if I've got that. I don't. Okay. Another thing to keep in mind, right? So this may be later in my presentation, so I'm just going to go ahead and say it now. So one thing that's really cool about earning an associate's degree is that you're halfway to your bachelor's. So when you go to ACC for 2 years and you wanted to transfer to a university to get your bachelor's degree, you only got 2 more years to go. Pretty awesome. It doesn't work that way for like bachelor's and master's and doctoral. You know what I mean? Like I can't like, you know, do a bachelor's degree and then be 4 years towards doctoral school or my master's degree. It doesn't work that way, right? It's just with the associates and the bachelor's. But that's pretty awesome because you can really start out at ACC, right? Do 2 years there, work for a little bit, and then go and finish that bachelor's. That's what a lot of people do. That's actually what I did too. Does anybody have any questions about this before I move on? Okay, cool. So how do you know what level of education you need? That's key. A lot of times we are unaware that we need a lot of school to do something or the other way around. There's no really easy answer for this, and it depends on so many different factors. And so I really encourage you, you know, while you guys are in this stage that you're in, you know, start doing your own research. You know, you start using the internet for a tool to kind of think through like, what are my goals and like what kind of education is needed. What I love to tell students is like to look at actual job postings. So I don't know if you guys ever look at Indeed, but you can just type in like any kind of profession, like in the key, like in the little search engine box, and then it'll bring up like a whole list of jobs in our area. And so if you want to look through those, see what kinds of things are needed for what you want to do. That can help a lot. I also recommend, like, you know, if you have not taken career readiness, that's a huge, you know, space for you guys to be able to explore a lot of this stuff. So if you're going to end up taking career readiness B, you're going to be able to do a lot of research in that class. So I put Indeed on here. That's probably like my #1 favorite website to kind of use for like career-based stuff. There's also a website called Glassdoor that sometimes is a kind of a pain to use, but they have a lot of great information that you can use to kind of search through and figure out like what kind of education would I even need, right? That's also something that you can reach out to me for and say like, hey, like, you know, I've always wanted to do this, but I don't really know what I need to get there. The key would be to just start thinking about these things now. Like, don't wait until your last term at the Excel Center to think through this stuff. Because a lot of it, we want to make sure we're addressing what you need to know right from the get-go. You can also talk to teachers about this. You can talk to your life coach. It does not have to be me. It can be really any staff member. I just encourage you to start having these conversations to kind of think through it. So I want to go through some common professions, and what I kind of want us to note is like the time or the amount of time that you have to spend in school doesn't necessarily equate to a high salary. And it's really more dependent on the kind of field that you're choosing to study, right? So we're going to just kind of go through like what level of education is needed for some of these common professions. We can kind of, if anyone wants to take a guess, we can do that. I will let anyone, if they want to try to guess. We have EMS, which is like the emergency medical services. So if you call 911, you're going to have an EMS person come. What kind of education level do you guys think they would need? Okay. We'll go to the next slide. I understand if we don't really feel like guessing. I have it on the next slide, but I'm just going to show you guys.
Are we just talking about the medical doctor or all the ones that are shown right there?
Just any of them. We've got like EMS, medical doctor, all the ones here.
Electrician, right? That says electrician or what?
Mm-hmm.
Well, for as far as I know, that's the reason why Excel censored the electrical company or something like that told me that I had to get my diploma. They said I could get the certification within the 6 months after getting my diploma. But you were saying what level, whatever, or you know, I don't think I would be more than a year studying the electrician to get my certification.
So you think about 1 year?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, and I heard you say too that it would be a certification. For sure. Well, I'm going to go ahead and go over. We're going to look at this. We're going to see, like, we've got medical doctor, we've got therapist, I have an engineer on here, electrician, and I also put software developer. We're going to go over. So EMS, or emergency medical services, that is an associate's degree and also a certification that you'll earn at the end of that associate's. And so I can see programs, usually it's about 2 years. Some programs are expedited, and I've seen 1-year programs, but typically it's about 2 years. Medical doctors, guys, that doctoral degree, right? That long amount of time that it takes for them to get through school. We've got therapists on here. So therapists are going to be required to have a master's degree. I also put engineers. It's a really common profession that people go to college for. And A lot of engineers just do a bachelor's, which is about 4 years. And then we see electricians, right? And so to answer your question, Manuel, yes, it's a certification. It's not actually college, but we see that to become a journeyman electrician, it takes about 5 years of an apprenticeship to get there. But remember, with apprenticeships, for those of you that were in my certification presentation, what's the key thing about the electrician, right, is that they've been getting paid the whole time that they're in school. So you would be able to make money right after you finish a pre-apprentice program and enter into your work.
And the good thing about it too, on my bed, the good thing about me before going into my classes and everything, I got my diploma. That when I'm currently working at the contractors, there's electricians they don't have certifications, but they know it well, and they're like teaching me already. So when I go do it, I won't have to be like too new to it. You know what I mean? So that's practice in the field, and once I get to to that stage, I'll do as good, not too bad.
Yeah, that's so awesome that you're getting that experience now. Yeah, most definitely. I'm really glad that you mentioned that. And yeah, it's just something that you can start doing. And we can see that a lot of these professions on here, there are ways to start gaining that experience right away. But they're not all created equal. Like, what I mean by that is, like, the amount of time that you're in school doesn't necessarily translate to how much money you're going to make. So EMS, those individuals can end up with like an annual salary of around $62,000 in Austin. Let's take a look at medical doctor though, guys. Like, yeah, they were in school for 10 to 12 years, but I mean, they're making $200,000 a year, right? I'm putting these as an example because I wanted you to see, like, you know, some of the associate's degrees, the certifications, yes, you can end up doing really well. And in some cases better off, right, than just with those with a bachelor's degree. But for some degrees, right, the college degree does help. The diploma does help. And you can see that. Again, it just depends on what you choose. Just keep that in mind. So therapists we see at 57,000. Engineers are about 76,000 per year. And then that journeyman electrician, they're going to start out, like, after the end of their apprenticeship, at the end of that 5 years, on average, again, this may vary depending on where you're going to be, about 57,000 per year, right? So we can see, like, this range here. We have, you know, associate's degree / certification earning 62,000, right? We see people with like a master's degree earning 57. And then we see journeyman electricians too. And so we can see that, like, you know, your education level is not going to necessarily make your salary. It just depends on what you want to do. So I always like to give that as an example. So for anyone that, you know, for college, you know, we all start out at the Excel Center at the associate's degree level. And that's really what I'd recommend. And there's a lot of exploration that you can do in that time. And so when we think about, like, what you can do with an associate's degree, a lot of that can be paired with a certification. So a lot of the stuff that we talked about within, like, the medical field, for example, like sonogram technicians or radiologists, they all do an associate's degree, and it's paired with that certification, right? So when we talk about college versus certs, a lot of times they're going to kind of be intertwined, right? But I think it's just a key thing to keep in mind that when you go to ACC, there is time for exploration. You know what I mean? All of us are going to end up being able to start out that associate's degree. So because of the kind of degree plan that we offer at the Excel Center, it's an expedited degree plan. So the best option really is ACC. A lot of students I have asking me, like, hey, should I apply to UT or St. Edwards or Texas State? And while that is a really good option long-term, ACC or Peloton U are really going to be our best bet. So Peloton U is a really, really cool option. I know we've already talked a lot about ACC, But I really do want to take a minute to talk about Peloton U. And so Peloton U is a university that is in New Hampshire. It's called Southern New Hampshire University. Peloton U decided, like, hey, they started back in 2015, and they were like, you know, we noticed that students that are considered non-traditional, right? So students that might be parents that might need to work full time, you're not your traditional like 18-year-old fresh out of high school, you know, college for them is challenging for a number of reasons. How can we make college more attainable for adults that have these big responsibilities, right? And so they have a college program that the program itself is called Peloton U, but students earn a degree from Southern New Hampshire University. And so it's an online hybrid program where basically students do most of their work remotely, and it's project-based learning. And so they're coming into the campus, I'd say like 10 to 12 hours per week to get that in-person help. But most of everything they're doing is online. And that is so helpful for many of us that have really, really busy schedules. And the best part about it is because it's project-based, you can actually earn an associate's or a bachelor's degree much faster than 2 to 4 years. That project-based learning makes it really possible. You know, I almost want to have someone from Peloton U come talk in these advisory meetings, just because they have a lot more information they can bring. But it's one of the most amazing programs I know, just because you're able to get through a bachelor's degree in such a short period of time if that's something that you want. I'm not saying you need to rush through it, but I know for many of us that 4 years can seem really daunting. And I also want to talk about the cost. And so the reason why I talk a lot about ACC and the reason I'm talking about Peloton U are because these are two colleges that are attainable financially, right? That is our number one thing. Like, we need to make sure, like, is this feasible? And there are ways to go through college without incurring a lot of debt. There really is. And we're going to talk more about that next time. But Austin Community College is affordable. They take financial aid, and their cost of tuition is a lot lower than it is at a university. So, for example, one semester at Austin Community College would cost you about $1,200 if you're going full time for 4 classes. But at UT, that would cost about $5,000, right? It's a big difference. So yes, it's about your degree plan and things like that, but it's the most affordable option after the Excel Center. Peloton, you guys, is so cool because if you qualify for the federal Pell Grant, and we'll talk more about what that means next time, then that means that your tuition is covered. There's no additional fees that you would have to pay. Meaning that you could essentially get a bachelor's degree with absolutely no debt. And that does not happen at other schools. Like, I don't know a single university that you could go to and get a full ride, right? So anyway, college is possible, guys. Like, and I want to share, like, college is not so much about how smart you are. It's just about how hard you're willing to work. People think like, oh, they're so smart, they're in college. Like, no, they're not. And actually, people that are incredibly intelligent, that have like off the charts IQ, are actually many times terrible students. So really, it's not about being perfectly like genius or anything like that. It's just about working hard. And college can really help you attain your goals. Like for nursing, right? Like, nursing is one of those fields like that does require a bachelor's degree. There's just no way around that. I bring up nursing just because I know a lot of students that really want to be nurses, right? But knowing yourself is key, right? Like knowing like, hey, like I can't stand being in class all day. Like, there's no way I could go to college, right? I mean, knowing yourself is key, but I don't want any of you guys to sell yourself short. because I know a lot of us, like, yeah, we didn't graduate high school when we were supposed to, right? Like, you know, Rosa's like, am I too old to go to school? The answer is no, you're not at all. And I think you do better when you're older in college. I think it's a terrible myth. You're welcome. It's a huge myth that like college is for when you're young. And in fact, I think it's wasted. There's like this wonderful quote, like college is wasted on youth. Because when you're an adult, I think you appreciate it so much more. You're not so worried about your social life. Like, oh my gosh, like I need to go be with all my friends. Like you're interested in it and you know what you want because that's going to lead to your career, right? So like, I think there's a benefit of being an adult in college. And when I was in college, yes, there was 18-year-olds and 21-year-olds, but there were also people in their 50s and their 40s sitting in those classes with me. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. So if your goal requires college, do not let that like deter you. Just lean towards it and understand a little bit more about what that means. Like, okay, college, how much college, right? And what would my major be? Is there a certification I can get first to earn experience, right? To get that firsthand experience. Yeah, I think too, like certifications, like especially if you're unsure, like, you know, if you're like, yeah, like I think I want to do it, like a certification short term can help you like make that decision, right? Like, yes, I want to do this. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's like getting that firsthand experience is really key. So college is really great, but it's just so much more long term, right? So anyway, just my 2 cents. Oh, and then I have a whole slide on this? Yeah, so I want to talk about for-profit colleges. This is just something I'm really passionate about. So if college is a goal, just make sure that the college you're going to is a college that is that has your best interest in mind. And so some colleges are out there only to make a profit. And so if we look at this left-hand square where it says for-profit college, like their whole goal is to make a profit, guys. And you guys, the same thing is true with certification programs. So pay attention, even if college is not your goal. So for-profit colleges are like, we want to make money, and their tuition is like really, really, really high. Like, I mean, I talked about ACC being like $1,200 for a semester. We're talking like 15,000 or something like that a semester for these for-profit colleges. Why? They're trying to make money. A lot of times they're not accredited. So that means that they are not recognized as a true college. So your degree may not actually mean anything to an employer or to the state of Texas or to really anyone else, right? Accreditation means that they say, hey, yes, this program is a good program. It's a legitimate program, right? So it's an accredited program. If it's not, that means that your credits don't mean anything. So like if I earned an associate's degree from a college that's not accredited, I could not transfer that to a bachelor's program. So that college credit doesn't go anywhere else but that college, right? So that's not what you want. You want college credits that are going to transfer anywhere else. And you want to make sure that all of the employers in Texas recognize your degree. Now, these for-profit colleges have a lot of money. So they are going to be ones that you're going to see advertised all the time. You're going to see advertisements on TV, billboards. You're just going to see them a lot. They're going to be on websites, on Google, right? They're going to be everywhere because they have the money for advertising. Like, when do you ever see advertisements for ACC or like UT Austin? You don't, right? So if you're seeing an advertisement, or if it keeps popping up as an ad, and this is true for certification programs, and in fact, I think it's even more important for certification programs, make sure it's accredited, make sure it's a legitimate program, talk to someone at the Excel Center. anyone to make sure that that is something that you feel like you can trust. The other thing is they prey on people that are first generation college students, meaning that they may be the first person in their family to go to college, right? So they may not have prior experience of what it should be like, right? So just please be aware of this, and I share this with your family and your friends. I mean, it's really a big deal because this is how people end up in a bad situation with like a lot of debt, because they'll like loan you all this money. They're going to be super nice. They'll be like, yeah, you'll get this degree. And it's a rough path. So let's look at the other one. So not-for-profit colleges, their end goal is to graduate you. Like they get more money based off of how many students graduate, right? Their funders want to see that students can finish this program. And most of the times, guys, these schools are going to be accredited. That's a big part of how these schools are even up and running. They have to have that accreditation. And we see much more realistic program costs. And why is that? Because they want to make sure that it's feasible for students, right? So it's got to be somewhat affordable. So I'm going to give you guys an example of just some for-profit colleges in the Austin area. The first one that I really want y'all to pay attention to is the College of Healthcare Professions, or CHCP, because they're right around the corner from the Excel Center. They're like right down the street. So anyway, they are one that is definitely going to be a for-profit institution. Southern Careers Institute is one of them, ITT Tech, University of Phoenix, and then also DeVry University. So I just want to put this on your radar because all universities that, you know, can get you in a little bit of trouble, right? Like in the sense of you want to make sure that your time and energy and money is being well spent. I'll give you guys an example just so y'all can see the difference. So like ACC, I put sonography on here. So people that do sonograms, like if you are pregnant, right, and they want to make sure your baby's like developing okay, they'll do a sonogram. They do sonograms for like all other purposes, right? So they're called a diagnostic medical sonographer, and it's a degree with a certificate that you get at the end. And so this is an advanced technical certificate. The whole program with everything included, right, is going to be $12,000, right, to get through. Let's look at the College of Healthcare Professions, or CHCP. So for that same exact degree, right, so it's a diagnostic medical sonography. The wording is a little bit different. On ACC, it says Advanced Technical Certificate. Here it just says AAS degree program. But that program cost is $42,000. Like, whoa. There's a big difference, right, between $12,000 and $42,000. So I just wanted to put this on your radar. You don't want to be paying too much. CHCP will give out like CNA, certified nursing assistant. They have phlebotomy. They have all that stuff. But they charge you like almost 3 or 4 times what ACC would charge you for the same exact degree or certification. So please be aware of this. Again, really, really important with certification programs too. But for college, it's just something that like, yeah, you just don't want to be taken advantage of at the end of the day. And this is, you know, another thing I just want to bring up. This is why a lot of times, like within communities, like we see a big fear of college, because a lot of people have gone to these universities and have been taken advantage of. If you were to search, like there are full-on lawsuits happening because students are taking out thousands and thousands of dollars for degrees that are not accredited, right? And so college, while it is very expensive, it shouldn't be that expensive. So anyway, I just wanted to keep making note of that like sometimes it can just take one person having this experience to make a lot of people like really, really afraid of even going there. Okay, how to know if college is the right choice for you? It's a big question, right? Like, you know, I barely even was able to go through like everything that college is, right? Like, and we talked about like, yeah, like college should be a little bit about everything. Like it should be about what you love to do and also how you can make money, right? Those should all be there. We know it's a time commitment. And we know that like over time throughout our life, we're more likely to make money, right? We're more likely to kind of have a higher salary. Doesn't necessarily mean for sure, but we know that certain fields do that. So how to know if it's right for you? And I think like a lot of the conversations I have with students is like, you know, are you in a place where you can learn, right? Do you have the resources to do that, right? So those financial resources are going to be huge. And so financial aid is a really big way that people can afford to be in college. And so when we do the financial aid presentation, I'm going to talk about like what kind of grants you can apply for. And we're going to see that that makes it really possible, right? But if you're someone that has, you know, to work full time, we need to consider your financial situation, right? Like I'm not ever going to sugarcoat anything, meaning that like if this, it needs to be feasible for you and your family. And so that's something that I really, you know, want y'all to focus on a little bit, just being realistic, right? Because it's the time commitment. I put transportation and childcare. Transportation right now isn't as much as a concern as it usually is pre-pandemic. But you just want to make sure that you can feasibly do these programs. And it's the same thing with certifications. Like it's a lot of that same idea, like making sure that you are fully aware about what is going to be expected of you, right? And homework will be a part of college. In fact, as a college student, you're given so much more freedom in the sense of like, yeah, like a lot of what you learn is on your own time. So really being able to think through like, how can I make time for that, right? And, you know, being a non-traditional student, like being an adult, you just want to think through like, how am I going to support my family? How am I going to balance these things? And it doesn't mean it's impossible, but what I find is that the more thought you put into it beforehand, the more successful you might end up, right? And so if one of these areas is a tough area for you, let's think through that now, right? There's no better time to be thinking through this. Because, you know, like the same thing applies with your diploma here at the Excel Center. It's all about what you do with it. The high school diploma is not going to automatically ensure that you're going to go off and reach your goals, right? So put in that work now in the back end so we can make that a reality. So I always like to just bring this up, like what kinds of support do you have, right? Because that's going to just be really important no matter what. Yeah, so how you invest your time does depend on lots of factors. And so I just wanted to make a note that you can always have short-term and long-term goals. You don't necessarily have to choose the, you know, this is my only option, right? So a lot of students are in a situation where they're like, hey, I really want to be a nurse, right? But like, I really just, there's no way that I can be in school for another 4 years, right? Like I've got to start working. I've been at the Excel Center for a while. I'm finally going to graduate. I really want to work, right? And so a way that you can kind of think through this is like doing something short term. Maybe you earn an associate's degree to start out with. Maybe you do sonography for a little while, right? You get that certification. You get that associate's degree for 2 years. Then you can work. And then eventually, if she wanted to go back and get her bachelor's degree to become an RN, she could. So think through it in the sense of like short versus long-term goals. If college is something that you really want to do because it's going to be required for the kind of career path that you want, don't write it off if it's not possible right now, because it might be possible later on. So you kind of want to think through like small steps. And a lot of us can get like really overwhelmed. We think through like this long-term goal right away, right? So sometimes a shorter term investment is a good idea, right? You just have to think about what is realistic for you. So think through that and plan ahead, because I think that's where people get the most tripped up, is like by being really overwhelmed by thinking through like way too much at one time, right? So like focus on the stair ahead of you, not the whole staircase, because it can get super overwhelming. So questions I always like to ask students who want to go to ACC, just like make sure, are you ready to learn, right? If that is a goal, like, hey, do you want to learn? Is that something that you want to do, right? Does your career goals require a college degree? Like, is that something that's required for your goals? And can you gain experience prior to going to college? You know, look at those job requirements. Is it the education that employers value, or is it experience, right? Sometimes they're gonna say, hey, like, we'll take years of experience over college, right? Knowing this information ahead of time, gonna be really key. And then, so like, how do you pay for college? Yeah, so this is gonna be something we're gonna go over after we get back from spring break. And especially if you are someone, well, all of you guys are not going to be no one's graduating this year on this call, right? I don't think. Okay, cool. So we've got some time. So what we see with financial aid, and this is a big reason why I have brought up plan ahead, think through this now, because financial aid requires you to apply a year ahead of time. And so if I was going to be graduating at any point this school year, I would need to do financial aid like yesterday. So anyway, with the right planning, a lot of this is super affordable, and many times will come at no cost to you. And we're going to really bring all this together, guys. We're going to talk through financial aid. We're also going to talk through a lot of programs. So I highlighted Peloton U, but I'm going to keep talking through a lot of programs. Like there's another program called Capital Idea that we're going to talk about. And Capital Idea will literally cover the cost of tuition at ACC fully. So they'll cover your tuition, your books, and your supplies. And they cover only certain programs at ACC. They cover healthcare programs, they cover IT programs, and also some trades. And so, if the number one concern is always cost, know that that is actually something that we can work around. The biggest thing is like knowing if this is right for you right now, right? And so we're going to talk a lot more about this. I know that I did give a lot of information today. I know it's a lot, but I do, I do have room to talk through things that if I didn't cover something that you wanted to know about, please let me know, because we've got room from now until term 5 to kind of bring that in. And so if there's certain professions that you want to know more about, I can definitely make sure to present on that. There's a lot of fluidity, like this is really just for you guys. So yeah, financial aid. I want to open it up to see if anyone has questions, or if you don't have a question, if there's anything else that you wanted to know about college that we may have not covered today.
You were saying something about to make sure about certifications, if they're legit or not. Like, how do you tell them that, or what?
How do you tell?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can always ask them, hey, are you accredited? They have to tell you. They should be. They have to tell you that. So if you are already considering a school, which you can always pick up the phone to call and ask them more questions.
Mm-hmm.
You can also run it by me or a teacher as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think yeah, because I think the program, well, man, I think it's legit. They were saying it was in the one in Excel High School. I don't know if it's because they were saying it was in the Norwood campus hours or something like that. That certification for electricians.
It's not free. Yeah, Goodwill does not have an electrician program, but there's great programs for that. Manuel, why don't you make an appointment with me so we can talk through that a little bit more?
Okay.
Yeah, because there's lots of different programs you can attend, pre-apprentice and also apprenticeships. And usually you'll be connected to the union is a big thing for that. Yeah. And I'll put my phone number in the chat. You can like just text me and we can just briefly talk it over on the phone. And again, I'll be talking about programs like after financial aid. We're going to talk about like what kind of programs you can attend and like some of the support that they provide as well.